Okay, leaders, we need to talk and not just about talking. Because if your version of communication is just, let me tell you something real quick, it's time for a major reality check. In today's episode of the Childcare Director's Chair, we're going to flip the leadership script and dive into the power of shutting up and tuning in. Yep, we're talking about listening. Radical, right? Because no matter your title, assistant director, lead teacher, assistant director, or director, everyone is watching and everyone is listening. So,
Yeah.
what happens when you're not? Here's the truth: communications isn't just what you say, it's how you make people feel. And if your team doesn't feel seen, heard, or understood, and all that rah, rah, rah culture talk means nothing. Whether you're leading a classroom, a team, or an entire center, if you're not listening, you're missing the mark. So, ready to step into being you ready to step into a room and not be the only voice talking? You need to start leading like a boss that you are. So press the play. Let's level up. Ears first. Today we're joined with my friend Melanie McGuire from the ECE Circle Time. We are so excited to have her back. This is not her first time on our show. So welcome back to the CCDC podcast, Melanie. What have you been up to lately, girl?
Yeah, girl, I've been working. I have been working. But
So
the
tell
most
folks,
important thing,
yeah,
I've been listening.
you've
I've
been
been
listening. Oh,
listening.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So tell folks who don't know you a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, great. Well, hi, everybody. My name is Melody McGuire. I am the founder of the Early Childhood Educator Circle Time. Short name is ECE Circle Time. And we focus on professional development to help programs get to high quality. And many of our programs that we serve become nationally accredited programs by all of the organizations. So that's what I got
Thank
to
you.
share
Thank
right
you.
now.
Yeah, thank you. That's okay. That's good enough. So because today we're more about listening than talking anyway. So let's start with the basics. Why do you think so many leaders think that they're great communicators, but they struggle with actually listening?
Because I'll say for me, it's an underrated leadership skill. One of the things that I realize is that even though we have communication as a two-way street, it comes from internally where you have to have the self efficacy to say that I am going to make sure that I measure twice and cut once. Okay, that I measure twice and I cut once, that I'm doing more listening than I am speaking. Because if we have a vision and we know exactly why we're here, if that is our philosophy, and we have a mission, then half of the battle is already won. It is just that you as a leader have to think more than communication as giving information and directions, but being the one to help cast the vision, being the one to listen to know exactly what your team needs to promote more collaboration and then also offer more solutions. So I'll give just a short story, real quick. Because I've helped over 30 programs to become nationally accredited within the past 3 years. When I was working with a program, they were struggling with turnover. And so one of the things that we did is that we implemented listening rounds that the director intentionally at least twice a week had an open door to where during nap time, during the morning or the evening, not only just the staff were able to come and let their hair down and say what they felt, but then they were also just given the opportunity to talk specifically and directly to the director to say, hey, I'm not liking this. And when you said this, a lot of times when we are just communicating, we want to be heard. And that's not what we have to do as leaders, regardless of if you're in a classroom, if you're leading a program, or you're leading as a parent.
Yeah. I always think of connection as a way to communication to as a way to connect with people. It's connection, right? It's not only hearing, like, listening, but hearing what they're saying and also what they're not saying, right? Looking at, okay, she's saying this, but there are other indicators that it's more than what she's saying. So,
Yes.
in your experience, what changes when a leader becomes a better listener? What happens?
You have less breakdowns, you have less resentment, you have less gossip, and a lot of passive resistance and or aggression. That's what I often see, and that's what I've also told leaders is that, uh, and especially where I'm from, we were always told that children are to be seen and not heard. And depending on the generation in which a leader is a part of, they will take on this complex of saying that everybody, no, you just go do busy work and you listen to me. But when you're always like that, you're not building team. And that's one of the things that we even talk about with teachers and the children. The first thing in communication, or the first syllable, is common in, and even with communication, we got community. So there's some level in where there has to be an exchange. But if out of communication, out of community, if we don't focus on that communal where people are able to feel a part, then we'll never have progress.
Yeah. Can you point out maybe a situation? Could you work with centers all over the country, but have you seen a situation where something as simple as listening could have really avoided a full blown staff meltdown?
Yes, no, yes. And then we have to, when I add to and I explain about listening, it's about active listening. It is where, if as the leaders were at that school, how you could have avoided a meltdown and how you would be able to keep the school culture is to provide that room for engagement. When you provide that room for engagement, then we have that lower turnover. As a leader, if we, and even for those of us that says that, okay, I'm the ruler, I'm the dictator, if you're there, you should be looking out and looking over the people. But when we don't do that, as which is what I've seen before, where we only want to take ownership in the way of somebody, when I tell you to do something, you do it, then that messes up the total listening. And with that active listening, it's more of how can I help? How can I serve? Because as I told you earlier, when we come together, we already know that we're a community. We already have our mission. We already have our values. And so all of us are together because on some level or some microcosm level, we love children and this is what we want to do. So if we already know that we're here because of this, love for children, love for helping, love for serving. Now, the part with listening is how do we bring that together? And with that active listening, taking into account that everybody has different ways of communication. And if we are listening to put posture ourselves, especially leaders as servant leaders, because we know why we're here, but your role is to help guide them and help them navigate throughout the day so that we will have more engagements, so that there will be less incidents with the children, so that the teachers can actually practice being present and having, not only being present, but having a conscious discipline on how they navigate throughout the day.
Yeah, and when we say communication, I know people automatically are thinking about words, right? Let's talk about your body language, like your tone, your face, even when you're silent. Like, let's be real, leaders have that look. You know the one, like how much does body language and tone impact how staff feel when they're talking to you?
It's big when we're looking at our body language. And as let's even go a little bit deeper, when we say that first impression usually is the last impression, because before you even open your mouth, I'm looking at how you present yourself. When parents are coming into your building, they're looking at the physical sense because this is a part of our senses. Our sight is one of the things that is most important. So when I see you with your arms crossed, or when I see you leaning up, or when I see that you're looking down at your phone, when I see that you're not paying attention and you're not in the present moment, that's 97% of everything. But just the part of relaxing, breathing, and then taking time to lean in, almost mirroring. And even if you, as a leader, you're having someone to come to you and who's really irate, you posturing yourself not to put up a wall, but to be in a position to provide a bridge from their misunderstanding to us being able to walk together. Because listening, and especially with our body language, it can be tricky, it can be complex. We'll overthink it, saying, well, okay, well, she's standing there and she's not paying attention, you're not listening. But then we also have to, on a different level, as leaders, carry the acknowledgement of different neurodiverse disorders, where there are some people that may not give you direct eye contact when they're speaking. It's the same as within the classroom, that there may even be children who you think that aren't listening, that aren't following instructions because they're on the opposite side of the classroom. So that body language is very important because it shows that I am present. And so you, as the leader, have to position yourself to understand that not only am I not trying to be the loudest voice in the room, but I'm also not trying to just sit here like a fly on the wall and be a part of what's going on.
Yeah. What are some subtle clues that a leader isn't really actively listening, and that connection between active listening and a strong school culture? Like, how does active listening actually show up in the school culture?
Now, that is a great question. And I can't even really say that that's a great question because we know that I work with programs that are looking to be high quality. And in the midst of that, looking to be high quality, the goal is for them to become nationally accredited. And at the basis of them, that bridge from where they are to becoming nationally accredited, comes with that listening. It comes with the even the physical part of how we're standing. When we're there and we're connected as the leaders, then it'll definitely make a difference. Body language, how you're standing. Are we in are we within proximity? And even sometimes the listening part will even come to the point of saying that maybe right now is not the time that we should be speaking about this situation. Maybe we need to talk about this later. I've worked with directors who will want to train and expect the staff to do something and move directly for them while they are taking care of the children. But if you came into the classroom and before you speak, you observe what's going on to see, is this a time where I can share this communication? And even with the active listening, that if this is not the time, put in an acknowledgement of saying, hey, can we pin this to later? We definitely need to talk about this situation, but because you're not facing me, that communication of even actually saying this is what I need from you in this moment. You're not able to give it to me. Let's reconnect. So that's one of the ways that I believe as leaders we can show up and posture ourselves with active listening, is taking that look around the environment. Is right now the time for me to tell Suzanne that she's not on schedule when the class is still moving? If the as a teacher, if the director is talking with a parent, is this the time for me to run and interrupt the parent and the director to say that I'm having a challenge with another child in the classroom. So I I'm pulling it in for me, and it's not to not directly answer your question, but within the scope of listening and active listening, the thing that I want to hone in is that in order to know the body language, we have to be present. And if internally you're not feeling heard, then coming back, writing it down, and saying, hey, we need to talk about this. With listening, it's just really, really, really important that we are using all of our senses when it comes to communication with parents, staff, and children. So, again, I'm not directly not answering the question, but I want us to be impressed upon if we're going to be active listeners and if we're going to be paying attention to what's going on in the environment, we also have to make that decision of is it time now or later.
I love that, and I think, I so appreciate that because that happens to me a lot as the owner, where, staff will open the door and unload whatever it is they feel is very important to them, and it probably is very important to them, but there's never, like, that little transition of, "Hey, is this a good time?" Right? And then I think too as leaders, like, this is where your time management skills come in, like you said earlier, like, having a round robin time on your door that says, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from this time to this time, I'm ready, open, ready to receive. Because as leaders, we're not always available to receive as well because we may not be in that mindset. We might be working on something different. Some people can multitask. Some people really hyper focus on things, and depending on what it is for me, I could be multitasking or hyper focused depending on the particular activity. Some things take me a little bit more to focus in on. So I think that that is really great, and I do think you answered the question because when you show and model active listening, paying attention to what's going on in your classrooms, you are building that culture, and then in that reciprocal, you're role modeling it. And, as a leader, you're saying, here's how we communicate here in our school. We're thoughtful about when we communicate. We're thoughtful
Mm,
about how we communicate, right? So you did answer that question. So thank you. Um, what's the vibe? What's the difference between a team that feels heard and one that doesn't?
ooh, lit.
I got all the questions today, Mel. All the questions.
Okay, look, before I respond to that one, could you please repeat the question? And I did that intentionally. I did
Sure.
that intentionally.
Okay. What's the vibe difference between a team that feels heard and one that doesn't?
So the reason why I had you to restate that question is because the vibe is also about connection. And when those team members feel safe, that they have a voice, it makes a difference. As I told you, with the programs that are becoming accredited, we have to make sure that the parents have a voice, that once a year they are going over the policies and procedures, that at least twice a year they're having that biannual conference with the parents. And what are we doing? We're providing space for everybody to listen. When we are doing those parent surveys, when we're doing the staff surveys, when we're doing the round robins, when we're saying that this is what we need, when we're communicating in our mobile apps to the parents, we're saying to others that what's going on in the inside, whether it be your thought, whether it be your emotions or your feelings, it is important to me. So that's how the vibe comes. The vibe comes with intentionality. And I've been at locations where I've explained that going through this high quality process, going through the process of becoming a nationally accredited program, it's not just for show. These are the things that we have to continue to do to make sure that we're serving. Even when it comes to the evidence of learning in the classrooms. When we're looking at that vibe, the first thing I tell teachers is that we have to build a community. And so, if we're going to go back to, as I stated earlier, community, we're going to look at the first first part of community. We got the come. We got to come. So we're going to have that vibe. That vibe is intentional, where we come together, where we mesh together, where we consider our thoughts and our emotions and our desires to ensure that they are on one accord. And that's what happened at those programs, where the vibe is there. That I have to call them. Are y'all still breathing? And they say, "Oh yes, we're doing fine. We're doing fine." And that's because they have the vibe of, we're in this together.
Yeah, I really do believe that listening can really improve morale and retention. And it isn't just wishful thinking, which is why I thought this topic was so important to talk about. So, what do you find are some of the common listening fails, if you will, that leaders make? And what are some like classic listening mistakes that you've seen leaders make, like talking, interrupting, assuming? Tell us, give us a tea.
Oh, the T is, I'll say, even number one, not being in tune, not not being in tune, and not being attuned. ATTUNDE, attuned, and the attunement comes from either having coaches, listening to podcasts such as your own, going to conferences, being involved, because you need to know what's going on. That attunement of, okay, I'm receiving affirmation from my families because the enrollment continues to come and everybody wants to be here because we offer this high quality program, that even if we're not accredited, they know that the at the source of everything, that we're here for this one purpose. And that's, of course, make sure that children are safe. Now, being in tune with that comes from, okay, what is our mission? What is our focus? What is our philosophy? And then behind the backdoor system, what is our operation systems? Are our policies and procedures clear and concise? Do we know exactly, and our staff know exactly what is expected of them? So that's really how we have to move in being in tune and then being attuned. It is a 100% cycle. It takes everything inside out.
Thank you. So, you had said that you had used the word systems in there. How do you create systems and habits that make regular feedback feel safe? You also talked about safety. How do you create regular feedback that makes people feel safe and, expected and not like scary or awkward? Because there's lots of different ways, right? I think one way would probably, some people are a little more introvert, right? Nobody wants to go in to the boss's office and say, "Hey, you're really blowing it right now." Nobody really wants to have that conversation, right? They don't, right? So maybe how good listening like opens the door to like growth and truth and retention, right? So how do we make these systems, right? Because I want people to take some action, right? It's all great to come to my podcast, grab your favorite coffee and, blow off 20 minutes on your way to work, but I want to help people. And I know you do too. And we really want you guys to take some action. So Mel, like, give us some systems that they can use to create a feedback loop.
First thing is that, let's follow the golden rule. Treat others how you want to be treated. Will we use that as the base? And then using those systems, how would I want to be treated as a parent? How would I want to be treated as a staff member? How would I want to be treated as a child? And some of us, yes, life has pressured us and beat us down so much that we don't care. I think I'm still walking in my purpose, but doing what I do as a director, it's just easy. I'm just here. But in order to be intentional, in order to have those systems, let's put in an ounce of morality. Let's put in a little bit of ounce of morality, and then the other part. Let's go into the legalism. At what level do you want to go? Are you just want to be basic, meaning that okay, hey, I just open up the doors and everybody come in and we're gonna keep you safe? Are you going to be a part of your quality rating and improvement system and begin to add layers to it? So that ounce of morality, that treating others how I would like to be treated, what is decent, taking off the layers of trauma or whatever that is, and then building based off of where you want to go. Am I just going to be following the state rules? Am I going to go up to the different levels in the communication? Because the staff need to know now what is expected of them. Level one may be we just got a license. Level two may be okay, now we're going to have a few people begin to go get their CDAs. Level three may be okay, now that we have a couple of people with CDAs, now we're going to work on making sure that we have a really great proactive curriculum. Then that level four, and where we may build that system, may say, okay, we're open good, we have staff with education, we're building a curriculum. Now we're going to be at the highest level, the pathway to the highest level, whether it's going through the system or being accredited. So this is what we build: morality and casting the vision of where do we ultimately want to go, finding out what is expected of you, and then sharing that. Even if your team, they don't need to know what everybody makes sure the minutia part of how much the water bill is. But if you're seeing that there's a disconnect, then creating that vibe and that connection and building that system begets a level of transparency that we must have.
Yeah, and all those levels that you mentioned, all of those have systems within those systems of how you collect feedback. Some of it's through meetings, some of it's through surveys, right? You talk about the CDA. Folks then will give surveys to parents and say, "Hey, can you give me your feedback as how I'm doing for your, as your child's teacher," right? So all those things have different levels of feedback that you can then use to kind of guide where you're going. Um, in terms of, communication and listening, like, what does that feedback say? Because we can very quickly get like, oh, well, of course she wrote that. She don't like me. So, or
Mm,
she just mad because I tell her she can't drop Johnny off after 9:05, right? But take what they say and take what they say with a grain of salt too, right? Look in the middle, because you're gonna have people who love you and praise you and you walk on water. And then you have other people who you couldn't do a thing right if you paid them $1 million. Right in the middle is the sweet spot. You laughing
yes,
because I'm telling the truth, right? But right in
yes,
that middle is where the gold is. And I feel like when you take feedback, you can really up level your program or your own professionalism, depending on what it is, right? CDA, that's more individual, where quality improvement, that's more program based, and accreditation is, even a higher level of that. Um, let's say this, right? Because I know we have fun over here.
yes, we
What would
do.
you say to that new or burned out leader who feels like listening is like kind of just like one more thing that they have to do on their
Oh,
already packed plate? What'd you say to that person? Because they're out there.
okay. You know what? You're right. And I'll say that
They're,
it may be the
they're probably
burnout.
not listening to our podcast, but because the people listening to this podcast actually are active and working really hard to be amazing. So,
Yes,
but
yes.
maybe we could share it with those people who are like, oh, I don't want to, right?
So I'll put it this way. And as a matter of fact, let me count. Let me work backwards. So what we have to do is that we have to make sure that we don't burn ourselves out. One, because listening isn't extra; it's really the foundation. It's really on how you start that communication. Even if you put out that we're hiring, their resume is speaking. Does their resume align with not doing exactly what you need, or being a direct replica of you, but being a person who will fit in? because as we're working backwards and we're taking the layer off of this onion, when you're looking and you're listening, it's going to impact your retention. And so then they're going to feel heard. They're going to want to feel seen. They're going to feel seen, and they're not going to want to leave. They're going to they're going to galvanize behind everything that you say. They're going to gallop forward. They're going to even bring in more people. And as they're bringing in more people, for you, making sure that that communication is a two-way street, that you're modeling. Remember, as I stated, putting in that ounce of morality with it too. And then having that legalism of this is how we do what we do. This is where you can put your information box or your doodle box, and then also understanding that listening is not just a part of communication on the negative side, because I've had programs where I would have them put up a shout out, SHOUT out board, a shout out board with sticky notes on the side. And when someone said something or saw something, they would put a positive notes. Parents and staff would do it because it's in a communal area. And when they saw that somebody saw me or somebody heard what I said to another child and that made them feel good, that's a part of that listening. So making sure that as we take down this onion, that in that listening, that it's a two-way street and provide opportunities for others to be a part of it. Also understanding that when you're wanting to listen, the thing is asking them to tell me more. That's the who, what, when, where, and why. When you say, okay, tell me more, that allows them to get whatever they have on the inside out to you versus them getting on what I like to call the telephone or the social media muscles and telling everybody else except for you. So you have to position yourself to be able to receive. And as what Erica said, take some things as a grain of salt, understanding also as we're listening and we're building that speaking loudly does not mean that they're present or that they're going to listen to you, because it's not about the volume of what you speak, but it's also in your actions of what you do. As I stated earlier, you want to measure twice and cut once. So you want to have that side, that scale in which you are balancing, because loud doesn't mean that they heard me, but present does. And as I spoke earlier with a key with listening, also understand the physiological and the psychological level and development of who you're coming in contact with, and understanding that culturally and generationally, the way that we communicate may be different. Some people may not look you directly in the face, but that doesn't mean that they haven't heard you. So you have to provide that safe place. And then understanding that if it fails, your listening fails, your communication fails, it's because you're interrupting. It's because you're not multitasking. It's because you're jumping from place to place. So even if the people or the children are all over the place, you have to be that calm and common pillar in which they can come to make sure that they are okay. Last, well, two more things. I'll give you two more things. Looking
Mhm.
at what you're listening, being active, that your active participation is what's going to build that school culture and that community. Because what you want not only is to place ads, but it's great to have referrals. It's great to have, oh, let me bring my friend. It's great to know that you have parents that will drive 45 minutes across town to bring their toddler or their infant to your building, your program, because they know it's high quality and that I feel heard. So in
Mhm.
them feeling heard comes straight in with the listening from the tone at the door. That's with your staff, that's with them. Because as I stated earlier, when we're pouring in that ounce of morality, treating people how I want to be treated. So when they're coming to the door, how is your body language? How is your center? How is it smelling? How is it looking? Did I say hello? How are you? Did I take 30 minutes out my day and just walk around to all of the classrooms? Hi, I'm just coming to speak to let you know I'm in the building. That lets you know, I want you to know that I'm in the building, but right now is not the time to talk because I still need to go speak to everyone else. And
Mhm.
being clear and concise, that with that listening and that communication will avoid breakdowns. So what you want to do as a leader is you have to become the change agent by being the best and first listener. There are military stories, and some of those who have read like 48 Laws of Power, all of those different types of stories where they say the general or whoever is the president, the overseer, they would say the issue and let everybody else resolve or talk their way out. And then they would speak. And so that's what you have to do. You have to have a little bit more of a tough skin, but your skin doesn't have to be so tough if you have systems in place, continuous parent involvement, continuous staff involvement, that you have team meetings, and that as a leader, you understand that mentally, physiologically, and psychologically, that you have to be the best that you can from the inside out. And this is how, last thing, you can make sure that you are a great listener and a communicator, because listening can be a struggle. Our plates are full. But I choose to believe that a director that has clear sight, clear vision, a clear motion will be able to stand in place and not be wavered. And that you've been in this industry or that you have a set of skills, even if you hire or you source some things out, because that's why EC Circle Time exists. That's why how we're able to help so many programs become accredited is because many of those directors or those owners, they don't try to do everything. They stay within their lane. And so as a leader, if you're having great communication, that's the ultimate of get somebody else to do it.
I love it. You dropped so many things there. So, guys, as we wrap up, here's some things we want you to remember. Like, don't always be in fix it mode. You need to be in hear it mode. You also have to make sure that there is psychological safety happening in your childcare centers, and you have to make sure that you create that. You have to make sure, as the boss, that you are getting open, honest feedback from everyone. Also, your team doesn't need louder leaders, they need present ones, as Mel pointed out. And think about practical ways that you can show you're present, even on the chaotic days, right? And maybe even more on those chaotic days and say, hey guys, I know today was a tough day and I felt you when this happened. I saw when this happened. Being present, letting them know that you are with them, that you have got their back. It's so important. And again, make sure that you don't burn yourself out. We all work really, really, really hard, Um, as we wrap up, Mel, I know you said a lot of things. Is there one last piece of advice in under 2 minutes that you can give our team?
Okay, so this is what I have to say, that at the end of the day, we want our programs to not just meet the standard, but beat the standard, go above and beyond. And in order for us to do that, we have to live it. And in order to live it, we have to be listening to what's going on in the center. That means listening to the children, listening to the staff, listening to the families, listening to the most important person, yourself. How are you feeling? You have to be the president of your own fan club, even when you have to make decisions that nobody else likes. Because high quality programs have a coexistence to where their voices are not silenced. High quality programs, the voices are not silenced. And so I want you to understand that listening helps with everything. Listening is at the core of national accreditation and high quality programs. And so remember that your leadership isn't about being the loudest in the room, but it is about creating a room where every voice matters. And the only homework I have for you all is that I want you to take advantage and read the poem 100 Languages of Children. That's one of my favorite poems by Lori Malaguzzi. I may said it wrong, but you know which one. So go find 100 Languages of Children, because if we want high quality, if we want sustainable programs, if we want less retention, especially if we want to be the top, we have to remember, in order to be the top, there are lots of voices that are behind leading us. So make sure that we're directing them by directing ourselves.
No. Thank you so much, as always, Mel, and I'm sure we'll have you on this show again. So we appreciate you always coming, dropping your knowledge. For those of you that are listening, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you are ready to lead with more clarity, compassion, and connection, start by sharpening how you communicate. Take what you learned today and try just one new listening strategy with your team this week. Then reflect on what changed. And we want to hear from you. So share your experience, your wins, your challenges with us. Tag us or message us at the show. Let's grow together. And don't forget to subscribe. Join us next week as we dig deeper into more tools to help every childcare leader know what they need to know so you can lead with purpose and power. You've got this. We've got your back. Thank you, as always, for tuning into the Childcare Director Share podcast. I'm your host, Erica Scoccio, and we are out.